who lived in Muslim Spain or in the Arab Middle East, along with the Christians, were of the same seed. You know what I mean by the same seed? Yes. They're all Semites, okay? Now, the founder of modern Zionism, Theodor Herzl, had a dream, and his dream was to create a safe haven for the Jews of Europe, and he was willing to look at Argentina, somewhere in Africa, or somewhere in the Middle East, in Palestine. They sent people to two Jewish rabbis to take a look at the Holy Land. And both came back and they reported to him, and they said, you know, the bride is beautiful. The bride is beautiful, but she's already married. This is part of Jewish history, modern Jewish history. What did that mean? It said, you know, Palestine, the Holy Land, already has people in there. At that time, it had approximately 60% Muslim, maybe about 30 or 35% Christians, and maybe about 5 or 10% Jewish people who had been there for millennia or for hundreds of years. Okay, the original Jews, at one point or other, some of them were living like tribes, Jewish tribe, a religious tribe. Okay, Judaism is a religion. Think about, stay with me a minute. Palestinianism is not a religion; it's a nation. Okay, when you talk about Jews and Judaism, it is a religion. It is a faith. It's a genuine faith, one of the three Abrahamic faiths that we as Muslims and Christians and Jews revere as the monotheistic religions of the world. This is for background. You know, I went to a Christian brothers' school in Jaffa, a boys' school, an all-boys school. I'm a Muslim, but my parents sent me to that school because it was a good school. In my school, it was an all-boys school. In that school, there were Jewish Palestinian boys, Christian Palestinian boys, and Muslim Palestinian boys. Now, I'm not historical. I'm only 82 years old. So this was in my life. There were, think about it, Palestinian Jewish boys, Palestinian Christian boys, and Palestinian Muslim boys. See the distinction between religion and nation? Now, when the Western world really felt heartbroken about the experience of the Jews of Europe, especially in the last 2 decades of before and during World War II, they were very happy. Firstly, they were feeling very guilty, but also they were very happy to find a solution for them, and that is to give them a home in Palestine. Why? Because it had more attraction than Argentina. Because historically, Jews have been there for a long time, but so have others. Okay? It's not the country of one religion, it belongs to all of us. It belongs to all of us, including also the people who are there who are atheists. I mean, they're there. I mean, so when we mix religion with politics, we come up with nothing but problems. That's why our founding fathers at one point or other said, you know, there has to be separation between church and state. When my friend says, I don't see a solution, I'm sorry, I see at least 2 very simple solutions. The simplest solution comes from the 21st century, and that is to create a country where religion is alive and well, but is a private thing between me and my Creator, between you and your Creator, or between you, whoever else. Religion separate from the state, where everyone has the same right, the same responsibility, irrespective of whether they are originally European, Polish, German, or what have you, or Muslim or Christian, where everyone is equal. Is that feasible? Yeah. I think it is. I think it is. There is an example of this in modern history, and that is South Africa. It's not a perfect place. South Africa was colonized by a group of Dutch, Boer people who believed that God sent them there because God gave them that land. and that everybody who was there had to either work for them or had to go. Well, believe me, what happened to that? What happened to that is after years of all sorts of problems, the world woke up to it. They decided they're not going to play soccer with South African teams. They're not going to play rugby with South Africa. They're not going to buy South African apples. Then Archbishop Desmond Tutu said, you know, apartheid is terrible. No country belongs to one religion. And it picked up from there. Even then, at that time, Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan were very strong supporters of the Afrikaans regime. But the will of the people overcame them, and overcame them peacefully. It's not perfect. I've been to South Africa twice. Trust me, it's not perfect. But it's significantly closer to perfection than it was under an apartheid regime. The other thing I want to say is, I distinguish between the Jewish people, among whom I have many friends, and the Zionists, who initially started as being driven by this love of this liberation movement 110 years ago, even around World War I, before World War II, during and immediately after World War II. But what Zionism has ended up is essentially the same thing that has been done to the Jews of Europe in the pogroms in Russia and Poland and in the death camps of Germany, in a different fashion, a very sophisticated but different fashion in Israel and Palestine. I've been to Israel and Palestine many, many, many times. I've stopped counting. When I haven't been there for a long time, I get a very special reception in Tel Aviv airport. The first time I'd been there after an absence of 15 years, I was the first person out of the airplane and the last person to leave the airport. I was invited to a special room with 4 people who were asking me inane questions over and over again. Why are you coming? Do you know any people here? Of course I know many people here. Who do you know? I know hundreds, lots of people. My daughter lives in Jerusalem, her husband there, my sister lives in Jerusalem, etc. I have friends. I have a friend who's a professor at the Hebrew University who's a member of Bet Salem. Bet Salem means the house of peace. But do you know Ibrahim Hammami? Of course I know Ibrahim Hammami. He's my cousin. He's your cousin? Yes, sir. He lives in Amman. No, not him. Ibrahim Hammami, who is the guy in al-Fahim, who is very strong Islamist. No, I don't know him. I've read about him. I've heard about him. So, by association, even though as a U.S. citizen, and I had a date to go and talk to a group in Beersheba, who is essentially a binational group working on peace. It was like I was fit with a plague or something. However, that's nothing, because I'm able to travel, and I've been fortunate not to have ended up in a refugee camp like 1.5 million of the 2 million people in Gaza are refugees from 1948 who were forced out of their homes north of Gaza, north and northeast of Gaza, like I and my family were forced out of my home in April 1948, 3 weeks before the foundation of Israel, and when over 66% of the Palestinian population were forced out. And the words were, you've got to get them out, and once they're out, never let them back in. You see, I fear that this business of someone who has lived with fear all his life, or someone has lived in an abusive family all his life, is doomed, maybe doomed, to become abusive, an abuser. And somehow or other, I don't think it has to be like that. It has to change. It needs to change, because the business of the most powerful country in the Middle East, and one of the most powerful countries in the world, who continues to act and believe that they are victims, who continue to act like they are victims. And as a result of that, you see what happened to Mona and what the young journalist Fida had experienced, and what all of the people of Gaza experienced much more last August, July and August. It wasn't 1,400, it was 3,300, over 400 children below the age of 15 or 16. Now, the Jewish tradition that I have been exposed to before all of this stuff with Israel was a tradition where Jews supported liberal causes. They built hospitals that admitted people of all faiths. They supported the arts and literature. And they are liberal humanists. In the United States, they